The space auction was almost over. Traders, junk collectors, and scavengers were leaving the dusty station. No one had touched lot 918. It was a rusted metal container, dented on all sides, with faded markings in an old alien language. It looked like junk, dead weight floating in space for who knows how long. But one human stayed behind. His name was not known in the stars. Just a quiet man with grease-stained gloves, a patched-up ship, and a habit of collecting forgotten things. He walked up to the container and asked the auction bot, "How much?" The bot blinked. "1 credit, sir." The human raised his brow. "Just one?" "Yes, sir. No bids in 12 cycles. Regulations require disposal, unless purchased." He thought for a moment, then tapped his wrist chip and paid. With a loud, metallic thud, the container dropped into the cargo hold of his ship. The other scavengers laughed as he left. "What's he gonna do with that coffin?" One chuckled, "Probably fill it with old tools, or sleep in it himself." Another joked. The man said nothing. He flew away quietly. Headed for a lonely asteroid base he called home. Inside the ship, he stared at the container. It hummed faintly. Like something inside still had power. He activated a scanner. It bounced off the surface strange. It was shielded. Old tech, maybe, or something meant to stay closed. He didn't care about treasure or fame. He just liked to fix things. He rolled up his sleeves and got to work. The outer locks were broken, but the inner seal was still active. He used a plasma torch, slowly cutting through the thick layer of metal. As the final seal broke, a cold gas hissed out. The room filled with a strange smells, white like flowers and cold like winter. He stepped back, his eyes wide. The container was not empty. Inside were rows of clear crystal pods, and inside each pod was a girl, alien, glowing, beautiful, and asleep. Some had strange markings on their skin. Others had long hair floating inside the liquid. Their clothes looked royal, ancient, like they came from a lost civilization. Their bodies didn't move, but the scanner showed weak signs of life. The man whispered, "What are you?" He counted 10 pods, all girls, all resting like statues carved from dreams. He moved closer, wiping the glass with his sleeve. One of the girls had silver blue skin and small glowing dots under her eyes. She looked peaceful, like she was waiting for something. His ship AI blinked. Warning, stasis field detected. Unknown tech, approaching overload, the stasis was failing. Whatever was keeping them asleep. It was breaking down. He didn't know what to do. Wake them up? Try to repair it. Sell it to someone smarter. But then he heard a voice, soft, faint, not from his ears, but inside his head. "Don't let them take us." He looked around, startled, but the voice was gone. The pods remained still. But now he saw one of the girl's fingers twitched. Something was happening, and someone, somewhere, might have just noticed that this old container was open again. The man checked. His ship's long-range scanners, static. Then, a flash. A signal short, encrypted, alien. Someone was watching. Someone new. He felt a chill down his spine. Not from fear, but from the weight of what he had found. This was no junk. This was not a coffin. It was a prison. Or maybe a vault, and he had just opened it. The man sat on the floor beside the container. His eyes on the girls inside. He didn't know who they were or what would happen next, but he knew one thing for sure. He could not walk away. "Not now," he whispered. To himself, guess 1 credit wasn't such a bad deal after all. And far beyond the stars, in a dark part of space, a machine I opened. A forgotten program blinked alive, and deep in an empire that once ruled half the galaxy, an ancient enemy said, "They've awakened." Asterisk, the human didn't sleep that night. He sat beside the rusted container, staring at the glowing pods. One of the girls twitched again, just her fingers. Then her lips moved slowly. The ship's air was cold, but sweat rolled down his face. He whispered to his AI scan. Again, are they waking up? The AI replied, stasis decay reaching critical level. Revival may begin any time. The human stood up and placed a hand on one of the pods. It was warm now, not icy like before. Inside, the alien girl with silver blue skin opened her eyes. Slowly, carefully, blinking against the soft blue light, he stepped back, holding his hands up. It's okay. I won't hurt you. The girl looked at him with confusion. Then her lips moved again. Strange sounds came out. Not any language he knew, but her face. Her expression. It wasn't angry. It was sad, broken, like someone who had lost everything. She struggled to sit up, pressing her hand on the inside of the pod. The liquid began to drain with a soft hum. Then, with a soft hiss, the pod opened, steam rising around her. She fell forward, and he caught her in his arms. She was freezing, light as air. And shaking hard, he grabbed a thermal blanket from the wall and wrapped it around her. It's okay, he said again, softly, you're safe now. She looked up at him, her voice barely a whisper. Not safe. If they know, they will come. He frowned. Who? But she closed her eyes again, too weak to talk. He carried her to a soft cot and placed her gently down. Her fingers gripped his sleeve before he could move. Where is my world? She asked. Almost in a breath, the human's face fell. I don't know, he replied. She let go of his sleeve, tears forming in her glowing eyes. Just then, a second pod began to hum. Another girl inside started moving. This one had skin like smooth bronze, her hair floating like fire underwater, and she looked ready. The pod opened with a sharp hiss, and she stood up tall. She wasn't weak, she was angry. Who are you? She barked, aiming her glowing hand at him. He raised his arms quickly. Wait. Not your enemy. Found this container. I didn't know. The bronze-skinned girl paused, looking around. Her eyes locked on the silver-blue girl on the bed, Sorella. She rushed forward, dropping to her knees. You're alive. The human watched in silence as the fierce girl hugged the weak one gently. He could see it now. These girls knew each other. Maybe even fought side by side. The strong one turned back to him. Where did you find us? He explained everything. The auction, the scrapyard, the one-credit purchase. Her eyes narrowed. They sold us. As scrap? He nodded slowly. Ashamed for no reason. Then you don't work for the slavers? She asked sharply. No, he said quietly. I just fix broken things. The girl blinked, confused by the answer. Then something inside her seemed to soften. The third pod started glowing. Another girl stirred. This one with short, white hair and soft lavender eyes. She opened her eyes and whispered a name, Valari. The bronze-skinned girl smiled. Yes, I'm here. One by one, the past began to return. The human finally asked, Who are you? What were you doing inside that container? Valari, the strong one, turned toward him. We were protectors, warriors from the royal line of Altheria. She said, when the war came, we were told to sleep, to hide, to survive. She looked at the container, her face tight. We were betrayed, sealed and abandoned. The white-haired girl, still weak, added softly, we were the last. They feared us. They wanted our power, but not our hearts. The human listened, shocked. He had heard stories of Altheria, beautiful, powerful world lost long ago. Some said it was destroyed. Others said it just vanished, but never in his wildest dreams did he imagine survivors would be sleeping in a scrap container. Before he could speak again, his ship AI beeped. Alert, foreign signal detected. Vector closing in fast. Time to contact 45 minutes. His eyes widened. Someone was coming, and it wasn't a traitor. He looked at the girls, now 3 of them awake, and said, "Can you fight?" Valari stood up, her hand glowing. "Not yet," she said, "but soon." The silver-blue girl added, "They will try to take us again." He nodded, gripping the edge of a nearby crate. "Not if I can help it," he replied, outside the ship. In the dark space beyond the window, a light flashed. The hunters had arrived, and this time, they would learn what it meant to steal from a human who believed in broken things. The silence inside the ship was thick. 3 alien girls now sat quietly in the soft glow of the medbay. Each one looked different, but they all shared the same expression: sadness and confusion. The human moved slowly between them, bringing water, warm blankets, and soft clothes from storage. They didn't speak much, but their eyes followed him, trying to understand who he really was. The silver-blue girl, Sarela, sat wrapped in a blanket. Shivering slightly, she looked out the window and whispered, "This is not my sky, Valari." The bronze-skinned warrior stood near the door, arms crossed. She had recovered faster than the others. Her power was returning. But something in her eyes showed caution she didn't trust easily. The third one, with white hair and soft lavender eyes, sat near a heating unit. She hadn't spoken since. Waking up, just watched everyone quietly, like she was afraid to breathe too loudly. The human didn't push them. He just worked, setting up food units, medical scans, and checking the ship's shields. The alert from earlier still blinked on. His screen: an unknown ship was closing in. Valari stepped toward him. "You said someone is coming, right?" He nodded. 40 minutes, maybe less. She clenched her fists. "It's them," Sarela whispered. "The ones who sold our people. They won't stop now." The white-haired girl finally spoke, her voice soft and broken. "They took my sister from another pod." Before we were sealed, the human turned to her. "What's your name?" She looked up, surprised. "My name is Lise." He knelt beside her. "Lise, we'll try to protect you, all of you." She looked at him for a long moment. Then something in her eyes broke. A single tear rolled down her cheek. The first tear since she had awakened. The human gently wiped it with his thumb. "You cry like us," he said softly. "We thought humans didn't cry." Lise whispered, surprised. "We do, when it matters," he replied. Just then, the ship lights flickered. The AI spoke. "Foreign vessel detected." Scanning us, Valari's eyes glowed faintly. "We're out of time." She turned to the human. "I need to access your ship system. Connect my memory shard." He nodded and opened the main console. She placed a glowing shard near the panel. It merged into the system like magic. Lines of strange alien code filled the screen, faster than anything the human had ever seen. "What are you doing?" he asked. "Encrypting our signal," Valari replied. "And preparing countermeasures if they attack." Lee stood slowly and walked toward Sarela, holding her hand. "I remember a song we used to sing before battle," she whispered. Sarela smiled weakly, then sang it. A soft, haunting tune filled the air. Even the ship AI paused to process the strange melody. It was beautiful, sad, like the sound of stars falling. The human closed his eyes for a moment. He didn't know their past, their pain, or their war. But he knew that whatever they had lost, it still lived inside them. Suddenly, the AI warned, "Incoming transmission." A voice came through, deep, robotic, and cold. "This is Captain Rax of the Volturi Syndicate. We have scanned your ship and found our missing cargo. Release them immediately or be destroyed." Valari's eyes flashed with rage. "We are not cargo," she growled. The human tapped the comms and replied, "They're not yours, and you're not welcome." There was silence. Then the voice replied, "You'll regret that." Human Valari looked at the others. "We may have to fight, but we are not ready," Sarela said softly. "Our power is only half restored. Lise took a deep breath, her hands glowing slightly. Maybe we don't need full power to win. Maybe we just need each other. The human grabbed an old shock rifle from the wall. Then let's make sure they know this ship is not a grave. Valari smirked. You have a warrior's heart, he shrugged. I just hate bullies. They moved. Fast Valari connected to the ship's defense system. Lise created a small energy shield near the engine core, and Sarela focused on sending out false signals to confuse the enemy. As the enemy ship approached, the human ship powered up like it hadn't in years. Lights glowed brighter, engines hummed louder, and a sense of purpose filled every corner. They weren't just survivors now, they were a team. The girls stood side by side with the human, facing the dark ahead. And as the enemy ship's weapons charged, Lee said softly, "No more cages." The human smiled. No more monsters. Outside, stars waited in silence. The stars outside were quiet, but inside the human ship, the tension was sharp-like a blade. Everyone waited. Valari near the control panel, Lee standing near the energy core, and Sarela sitting close to the human. Her body still weak, but her mind alert. ETA of enemy vessel 5 minutes, the AI announced. The human tightened his grip on the old shock rifle. It wasn't made for war. It was a mining tool modified for defense, but it was all he had. Valari spoke fast. Their ship will have shields stronger than ours. Their weapons can melt through metal in seconds, any weakness. The human asked, "Maybe," she replied, "but we'll need to surprise them." Lise walked over with glowing palms. "I can block their first shot, but not more than that." Sarela raised her head. "Then we make that one chance count." The human looked at all three girls. "Why are they hunting you? What do they want so badly?" Valari answered, her voice heavy. "We were made to protect the Altherian royal bloodline. We had abilities even we didn't understand." "Were you soldiers?" he asked. "No," she replied. "We were defenders, guardians of life, the last line of peace. But when our planet was attacked, those who feared us wanted to erase us. Why put you in stasis?" "To save the future," she said. "But instead, you were sold as weapons, lost in the void." The ship shook slightly as something passed nearby. "Vessel in range," the AI warned. On the screen appeared a dark, blade-shaped ship. Its hull was black with red lines pulsing through it like veins. A logo glowed on the side, 3 red claws in a circle. Valari hissed, "Volturi slavers." The comes activated again. "This is your final warning. Hand over the Altherian relics, or be erased." The humans stared at the screen. "Relics? Us? That's what they call you?" Sarela nodded to them. "We are just ancient tools." He pressed the come button and spoke firmly. "If you want them, come get them." There was silence for a moment. Then the enemy ship charged its main cannon. Valari shouted, "Brace for impact." Lee stepped forward and pushed her hands outward. A glowing wall of energy formed just as the cannon fired. A giant wave of red plasma hit the ship, but the shield held. The ship shook violently. Panels fell. Sparks flew. Lise cried out in pain, her knees hitting the floor. "Lise." The human rushed to her. "I'm okay," she whispered, "but I can't do it again. Shields offline." The AI said, "One shot was all we had." Valari muttered, "Now it's our turn." She tapped into the shard in the console, targeting their power core. The human looked at her screen. "You can hack it." "No," she said with a grin, "but I can confuse it." Suddenly, alarms started going off on the enemy ship. Their lights flickered. Their weapon charged again, but stopped halfway. Sarela began humming softly, her voice shaking the very metal around them. "What's she doing?" the human asked. "Resonance pulse," Valari said. "She's using sound to disrupt their systems." Outside, the enemy ship spun slightly, lights dimming, weapons freezing. The human took the chance. He launched one of his old mining drones toward the enemy ship. Not a weapon, but packed with unstable plasma cells. "Manual control activated," he whispered, guiding it straight into the enemy's hull. Boom! A fireball burst on one side of the enemy ship. It's causing panic among their crew. But it wasn't over. They launched boarding claws, sharp, mechanical. Arms trying to grip the human ship. Valari shouted, "They're trying to pull us in." "Not if I break their arms first," the human growled. He ran to the hull breach lever, flipped it, and activated emergency thrusters. The sudden burst sent the ship spinning. Ripping off one of the enemy claws, Lise crawled to the window. Her hands glowing. "I can overload their energy," she whispered, "if I can see the core." Sorella, now more awake, stood and pointed. There, bottom deck, glowing red, Lise closed her eyes and focused. Her palms sparked, her body shaking. The enemy ship trembled on, then exploded in a brilliant flash of light. Pieces floated in space like dark feathers. The enemy had been defeated inside the human ship. No one spoke, only the sound of breathing and the soft hum of the engine. Then Sorella smiled for the first time. "You did it," she said, looking. At the human, "No," he replied. "We did it together." Valari looked out the window. Her voice calm now. "They'll come again. More ships, more slavers." The human nodded. "Then we get ready." Lise leaned against the wall, exhausted. I think I like this ship," she said weakly. Everyone laughed, even in fear, even in pain. They found something new together. Not just safety, but hope, and deep in the ruins of the enemy ship. A small black cube blinked once. A backup signal, a message sent. The hunt was not over. The battle was over, but the air inside the ship still felt heavy. Sparks crackled from damaged wires, and smoke curled near the ceiling. The human coughed and wiped his face with a sleeve. He looked around. Everyone was alive, but tired. Sorella leaned against the wall, her silver-blue skin glowing faintly. Lise sat on the floor, breathing hard. Her white hair stuck to her forehead with sweat. Valari stood near the controls, eyes still watching the scanner. "They'll send more," she said quietly. "They always do." The human checked the engine readings. "We can't outrun them, not in this shape," he said. "Half the systems are fried." Valari nodded. "Then we hide." He looked at her. "Where?" Lise raised her hand, weakly. "There's a dead moon nearby." "I saw it in the enemy's navigation system." The human brought up the map, found the coordinates, and set course. As the ship turned, everyone held their breath. Even though they won the fight, the war wasn't over. When the ship landed on the dusty surface of the dead moon, they stepped out into silence. The sky above was dark with distant stars, and the ground below was cracked and gray. A small cave opened near the edge of a cliff, and the human led them there, inside the cave. They sat in a circle, wrapped in blankets, warming their hands over a small power flame. The silence grew heavy again, until Lise whispered, "I felt something back there, something strong." It came from Sorella. Everyone looked at Sorella. She blinked, confused. "Me?" "You glowed," Lise said. "More than before." Just for a second, Sorella shook her head. I don't remember," Valari stood and stepped closer. "Try now." "Try what?" Sorella asked, nervous. "Breathe," Valari said gently. "Close your eyes and feel. Let it rise." Sorella did as she was told. She took a deep breath, then another, slowly. A soft blue light began to grow around her chest. It spread too. Her shoulders, her arms, her fingertips. Then suddenly, the entire cave shimmered. Like the walls were breathing. The human stood up in shock. "What's happening?" he asked. "She's awakening," Valari said. Smiling for the first time in hours, Sorella's eyes widened. They were glowing like twin stars. She gasped, as if something deep inside her had just broken free. Then she collapsed. The human rushed to her, catching her before she hit the floor. Is she okay? He asked, panic in his voice. She will be, Valari said. But now we know she carries the core. What core? The Altherian heart, Valari said. It's the last of our world's energy, passed into her bloodline, Lise added. That's why the slavers hunted us so badly. Not just because we're rare, but because she's the key. The human looked down at Sorella, now sleeping again in his arms. Why didn't you say anything before? I didn't. No, Valari replied. It was hidden, sealed. Probably to protect her. Just then, the cave lights dimmed. The human's wrist scanner beeped, another signal different this time, strange and unknown. It's not the slavers, he said. Reading the data, Valari stood, alert. Then, who? The signal repeated soft, slow, almost like a heartbeat. Lee stepped closer, eyes wide. That's an Altherian frequency, but your people are gone. The human said, not all of them, Valari replied. Some may have survived. Or left markers. The signal gave coordinates, far beyond the cave, deep under the moon's surface. It was calling to one person, Sorella. She needs to go there, Lee said softly. It's for her. Sorella stirred and opened her eyes. I heard it, she whispered, a voice. Calling me home, the human helped her sit up. You're still weak, he said. We should rest first. But she shook her head. No. If it's Altherian, if it's from my past, I must go. Valari nodded. Then we go with you. They packed quickly, taking only what they needed. The human grabbed extra batteries, light sticks, and his tool belt. They moved through the moon's tunnels, cold and dark, until they reached a strange metallic door buried deep in the rock. Sorella stepped forward, placed her glowing hand on the surface. The door responded, sliding open without a sound. Inside was a chamber filled with lights, floating symbols, and glowing walls. In the center was a crystal platform. Sorella stepped onto it, and the room reacted. A voice echoed not in their ears, but in their minds, welcome. Last of the bloodline, the platform glowed brighter. Sorella cried out, floating slightly in the air. Light pouring from her chest. Valari and Lise tried to step forward, but the human held them back. No, he said, this is hers. The light spread through the room, then rushed into Sorella. She landed gently, breathing hard, but she looked different now, stronger, clearer, like a queen waking from a long dream. I remember now, she said, standing tall. I remember who I am. The glow in Sorella's body slowly faded. But something had changed. She no longer looked lost or scared. She stood taller, her eyes steady and her voice firm. I remember my name, my rank, my purpose, she said. Quietly, I was a protector of the crystal line, chosen to carry the heart of our world. Valari and Lise stepped forward, speechless. The room around them still shimmered with soft blue light. Ancient Altherian symbols floated in the air like stardust. The human watched her silently. He didn't understand all of it, but he understood. Her strength? What now? He asked. Sorella looked at him and said, now we awaken the others. The others? He blinked. There are more, she replied, scattered across the stars. Like me, like us, sleeping in hidden places. Valari touched one of the glowing symbols. But even if we find them, we're not strong enough to protect them from the Volturi, or worse, we might be. The human said softly. He looked around the ancient chamber. Then back at Sorella. You have power, yes, but you're not alone anymore. She tilted her head, curious. What do you mean? The human turned to Valari and Lise. You've seen my ship. It's not fancy. It's not powerful, but it's mine. I built it from scraps, from junk nobody wanted. He continued, and I made it fly. He stepped onto the platform with Sorella and placed his hand over hers. You carry the heart of your people. He said, let me carry the body. Valari blinked. You want to rebuild your ship? With Altherian tech? More than that, he said. I want to make it something no one expects, stronger, faster, smarter, and powered by hope. Lee smiled. Hope. That's what we lost in the war. Then let's bring it back, he said firmly. Back. On the surface, they returned to the ship. The human set up his tools. Dragging wires, welding metal, and scanning circuits. Valari synced the Altherian shard with the ship's core. Lise began writing energy runes into the walls using glowing strands of her own power, and Sorella stood in the center, eyes closed, linking her mind to every part of the ship. Slowly, the broken human ship began to change. The metal panels shifted and reformed. Lights turned a deeper blue. The AI's voice changed, calmer, clearer. This vessel is now linked with Altherian core intelligence. It said. The human wiped sweat from his forehead. We did it. The girls looked around in awe. The rusted container that once held them in sleep had now become a living ship. A fusion of human engineering and ancient alien spirit. Suddenly, the radar beeped again. 3 ships approaching Volturi, heavily armed. Not this time, Valari growled. The human jumped into the pilot's seat. It's now glowing with new energy. Strap in, he said. Let's see what this baby can do. The enemy ships fired first sharp beams of red plasma. But Sorella raised her hand, and the ship's shields responded instantly. A curved bubble of light appeared, deflecting the blast like a wall of water. Lee summoned a wave of energy that danced across the ship's surface, redirecting charge, she whispered. The blast bounced back and hit one of the Volturi ships. Frying its engines, Valerie locked on with the new targeting system. Firing, she said, a blast of pure blue light shot out from the upgraded core. It wasn't just a weapon, it was music, memory, and pain all in one. The second Volturi ship exploded, the third turned to run, but the human pressed the throttle. Not today, he said. The ship moved like lightning. Chasing the enemy, he lined up the shot, paused, and then boom, gone. Silence returned to space. The stars twinkled like they were watching. Inside the ship, Sorella turned to the human. You were right, she said. We were not strong enough alone, but together, Lise added, smiling. We are something new. The human leaned back in his chair, looking out the window. He had saved them. And they had saved him too. This ship, he said. This crew. We're not just running anymore. We're going to find the others. Valari nodded, and stop the ones who hunt us. They all placed their hands together in the center console. A silent promise, a new beginning, outside, in the black. Silence of space. A small signal pulsed from the ship's core. It was not a cry for help. It was a beacon of warning. Humanity had just upgraded. The stars stretched wide around them like an endless ocean. The ship moved quietly through space, no longer rusty or slow. Now it hummed with power. Glowing softly from the fusion of human tech and Altherian light, it was more than a ship now. It was a message that something old had awakened. And something new had begun. Inside the command room, the human sat at the controls. Lise sat beside him, her soft lavender eyes watching the map. Sorella stood at the back, arms crossed but calm. And Valari adjusted the scanners with focus. They were not passengers anymore. They were a crew. The human pointed at a blinking dot on the hologram. That's the next one, he said. Another lost stasis container, hidden in an asteroid field. Lise looked worried. What if it's empty? Sorella replied gently. Then we still go. Because even one of us left behind is one too many. The ship jumped to light speed. Stars turning into lines of white. As they traveled, the crew rested, repaired their gear, and ate together in the dining pod. Valari said something none of them expected. You know, I used to think humans were simple. Soft, she said, poking her food. The human raised an eyebrow. Thanks. But you built something out of nothing, she continued. That's rare. Even in the stars, he shrugged. I just didn't want you to die in a box. Sorella laughed softly. Well, you certainly got more than you paid for. 1 credit, the human said with a smile. Best deal in the galaxy. Suddenly, the ship AI spoke, arriving at target location. Unknown objects detected nearby. They rushed to the command room, outside. The asteroid field floated like sharp teeth hidden between 2 giant rocks. Was another container larger than theirs, sealed shut and covered in space dust. But they weren't alone. A sleek silver ship hovered nearby, scanning the container. Volturi. The human asked Valari, narrowed her eyes. No, something else. More advanced. They opened a channel. A face appeared on the screen, an alien with white armor and gold eyes. This is Captain Howran of the Dietary Watch, he said. You are trespassing near a protected relic, the human replied calmly. We're not here to steal it. Just to wake someone up, Captain Howran frowned. You opened one of these containers already, didn't you? Sorella stepped forward, her voice steady. Yes, and I remember the Dithari. You once stood with the Altherians. Howran's eyes widened. Impossible. You should be extinct, but we're not, Sorella said. We're rebuilding. The screen went dark. Tension filled the ship. After a long pause, the Dithari ship powered down its weapons. A message blinked, permission granted. The crew let out a breath of relief. They suited up and flew out in a small shuttle. The human landed near the container and walked slowly to its side. He placed his hand on the metal surface, just like before. Sorella stood beside him. This time, you should do it, she whispered. He looked at her, surprised. Why me? Because you gave us a second chance, she said. Now, give it to them. He took a breath and placed his palm on the activation panel. The container hissed, lights blinking, power returning after centuries. The door opened and inside were more sleeping alien girls. 10. No. 12. Lise gasped. They're alive. Valari scanned them, all Altherian guardians. The human looked at them, peaceful in sleep. He whispered, Welcome back. Back on the ship, the crew prepared extra beds, food supplies, and medical tools. They were no longer just survivors. They were rescuers. A family built from pieces that once didn't fit anywhere. As the new girls were brought aboard, some began to wake. The first to open her eyes saw the human and whispered, Are we safe? He smiled. For now, yes. Sorella placed a hand on the girl's forehead. You're home, she said, and we'll never let them take you again. In the command room, Valari updated the map. More signals appeared, hidden containers. Lost voices, sleeping memories. Lee smiled. We're going to need a bigger ship. The human laughed. Or a whole fleet. As the ship rose from the asteroid field, the stars above looked different. Not cold, not empty, but full of light. They had started as broken pieces. 1 man, 3 alien girls, and a rusty box. But now, they were the beginning of something new. A bridge between species. A team stronger than any army, and wherever pain or darkness hid, they would find it and bring light. Because this wasn't just a rescue mission, this was the rebirth of something forgotten, and the galaxy was watching.